Here it comes!
Hey everyone, Falcon197 here, and welcome to my second official review vlog. It's been a long time, literally years, since I posted my first vlog entry reviewing Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. The main reason for the downtime is because I've been juggling other things and YouTube has become less of a priority for me. But today's the day I decided to invest the time and roll out a quick video to contribute my thoughts to one of the most heated subjects in gaming right now, the release of Metal Gear Survive. So let me start off by saying I know that I'm coming into this discussion late. Metal Gear Survive has already been out for over a month, and that's left plenty of time for review and critique to slant people's opinions for or against the game. I don't expect to change the minds of the whole world, but there are some things I want to point out that I've put a lot of thought into. In fact, I wound up revising my original commentary for this video because I've come to realize that there's already enough polarization. People have taken their sides, and my goal above all else is to inform, rather than try to pull for one side or the other, even though it will probably become evident which side I've taken. One more thing I'd like to say is that while it's rare for me to be super vocal, this is one of the moments where I feel compelled to speak up, because the majority of what I've been hearing and seeing about Metal Gear Survive simply doesn't accurately reflect the game's quality, nor does it coincide with my experience playing it. Let me point out something else important before going any further. Buying this game was a gamble for me. I was aware early on of the rumblings coming from people who have nothing but hatred for Konami, and the amount of ripping being done on the game when its trailer first appeared motivated me to think carefully about whether or not I'd buy it. But then I let my interest drop and basically adopted a meh attitude about it. I literally had no intention of buying Survive until I got back from a late flight home several weeks ago and found the news on Steam that the beta was live, and that it would be ending in less than a day. What followed was a mad scramble by me and a friend who'd also missed the memo to get the game downloaded so we could play. All told, I managed to fit in about 2 hours of gameplay, and I loved it. It felt like an improved version of Call of Duty Zombies, but set in the world of MGS and built on Phantom Pain's core gameplay experience. And for me, that was enough to decide I'd buy it as long as I could find people to run co-op with, which is easy because I have a lot of friends who play MGS 5, and they were all on board for the co-op experience. Seems legit, right? Not so fast. Barely a day after I bought this game, the internet began exploding. All of a sudden, any YouTube videos featuring Metal Gear Survive gameplay, or reviews, or commentary started getting comment fragged non-stop by people saying the game was bad and you shouldn't buy it. Then came the formal reviews and reviews in progress, many of which echoed the same things as the YouTube comment storms, only with far less cursing. And then, of course, there was Reddit. From what I've been able to tell, the main thrust of this hate train against Metal Gear Survive has 3 central points. First, any MGS game made without the blessing of Hideo Kojima is automatically garbage. Second, it's unforgivable to make an MGS game that doesn't have the exact stealth action vibe of the main games or their canon. And third, anyone who buys this game or supports it is full of shit and wants Konami to continue destroying the Metal Gear Solid franchise. Okay, so let me get this straight. In order to be in the camp of true MGS fans now, apparently we're required to give absolutely zero credence to anything Konami produces, because regardless of the merits of any games like Survive, it's our sacred mission to defend the honor of our Lord and Savior, Hideo Kojima. There can be no discussion. There can be no quarter. There can only be this purely anti-Konami dogma. So come forth, you blaspheming heretics. Come forth and seek forgiveness from Lord Kojima. Confess your sins. Tweet Hail Hideo and fuck Konami 3 times and be absolved. Whatever you do, never give any consideration to Metal Gear Survive based on whether or not it's actually a good game.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
How quickly we forget. How quickly we forget the old saying about judging books by their covers. Now hold on. Let me take a step back and make it clear where I stand on this whole deal with Konami, because my dank sarcasm is only meant to parody everything I've seen from the self-proclaimed MGS fanboys running the hate trains in YouTube comments and Reddit posts. In fact, I agree with them to a point, in that what Konami did with Kojima was pretty messed up and never should have happened. I think it was both a disservice to him and the Metal Gear franchise, and may have forever compromised the developer's rapport with its fan base. But unlike the dogmatists I've seen spewing the hateful hashtags, I've chosen not to hold a grudge against Konami, because now the burden is on them to prove they can actually step up and drive the Metal Gear series forward without the mastermind who created it. They've got a lot of work to do, but I don't think it's fair to unload on them for using Survive as a buffer while they work out what to do next with the series. And why do I say it's a buffer? Because I don't think it's an altogether bad deal to have games like Survive that venture off on sidetracks from the main Metal Gear universe and attempt to innovate some of the more unique gameplay we saw in Phantom Pain. Examples being stuff like wormholes and a more micro-oriented base management system. A lot of this stuff is worth exploring, and games like Survive provide an opportunity to test the waters and see how the community responds. Of course, this all depends on the player base maintaining enough objectivity to do so. It also assumes Konami knows what it's doing, but I'm not here to speculate on that. My focus is on outlining the positive aspects of what Metal Gear Survive offers to players just for giving it a shot. And however limited my audience, I consider it my responsibility to offer fair perspective and counter some of the nonsense out there, most of which is coming from the critics with the bigger audiences. My aim, if any, is to criticize the critics, especially when they deserve it. And this is a time when the majority of voices speaking on this are doing so disingenuously. Virtually all of the reviews on Metal Gear Survive I've watched or read have taken issue with the way Konami designed its save slot system, purportedly as a punitive microtransaction.
You buying a fucking save slot, Joe? Is that what I'm seeing here? Are you buying a fucking save slot? Are we doing this now, Konami? Are we doing this for real? Like, you can only play this game with 1 character and 1 save slot unless you pay us $10. What is... Oh my God! $10 fucking dollars for another fucking save slot? You, Konami,
Wow.
seriously, this is not happening. This is not happening.
But if you want one final reason to boycott this game, and I may not even purchase it for streaming for this reason, it's because Angry Joe and other YouTubers quickly pointed out that you get 1 save slot in this game. If you want to buy an additional save slot to create a second character, it's $10 for the microtransactions.
If you want to have a separate save slot and keep your original character in Metal Gear Survive, you're going to have to cough up $10 to make it happen. to open up an extra save slot.
So as I said, it's pretty easy to discern what the general message is that's being put out by reviewers. But not a single one of them pointed out that it is possible to unlock new save slots without spending a dime of real money. Similar to the reward system implemented in Phantom Pain, Metal Gear Survive provides players with daily supply drops and other rewards that can be claimed just for logging in, including the premium SV currency used to purchase save slots and other unlocks. The devs have also recently added battle points as another reward system for completing event missions, which can award players additional SV currency. So did you catch that, Angry Joe and company? You don't have to spend any money to get a new save slot. What's being reported is only at best half true, and every single one of the hate-slinging comments got this fact absolutely wrong! Seriously, I get that people despise Konami for their corporate practices, and the whole thing with Kojima left a bad taste in the Metal Gear community's mouth. But that's no excuse for using half-truths or false narratives to propel the community towards not buying Survive. How dare you, Falcon? You mean you're actually defending Konami's horrific practices and terrible track record, all because of a technicality? No, I'm not. As I've said before, I have no intention of white knighting for them because I agree with a lot of the criticism, but only to a point. My disfavor stops at the line of what's actually proven to be happening versus what people merely accuse them of. And while I recognize that even having a microtransaction option for unlocking save slots sets a dangerous precedent, I also recognize that spending money isn't required as long as you're willing to wait for the free SV coins to churn. Plus, we aren't exactly past the point of no return on this. There are recent instances of backlash by consumers prompting game developers to not repeat their mistakes with microtransactions. Take the example of Metro 2033. Deep Silver thought it would be a good idea to sell DLC that added a new difficulty setting, the famed Ranger Hardcore, on a single-player game. But by the time the thunderous reaction by their community died down, they ended up coming back and admitting it was a mistake to begin with, and when Metro Redo came out, guess what? They didn't repeat the same error. With Konami, while the jury's still out on whether or not they'll learn their lesson about how to not do microtransactions, it's fair to at least give them a chance to not screw up before writing them off completely. But Falcon! What about people who bought the game and can't create new characters for their siblings, family, or friends who want to play without buying an extra copy? I will concede this point. This really sucks for people in this boat. But again, let me stress that it's possible to get the 1,000 required SV coins simply for logging in and continuing to collect them. Ever since the game's launch, I've accrued around 1,000 SV, but the times I've used it has been to reduce timers on base digs, similar to using MB coins to speed up FOB build times on Phantom Pain, which is something no one really ever complained about. But let's get back on track with what's really important, because we can argue details all day long. Here's what really matters. If you're going to rip on a developer for unfairly scamming us to pay for more content, make sure we're actually being scammed to pay before you level your accusation. While it's possible to pay money for extra saves and other stuff in Survive that should be unlocked already as core functions, paying out of pocket isn't required, and it's more than fair to argue Konami should curtail their attempts to bake microtransactions into more places that tie into progression. But that's where the scope of legitimate criticism stops. Taking it further requires us to pervert the facts or settle for half-truths like too many reviewers did when they jumped on this bandwagon to curry hatred for the game rather than being objective. This is how you undermine your integrity as a reviewer, and even while this slip-up might seem trivial to some, anyone paying attention is going to take notice and ask the questions no one wants to answer. That's basically the role I found myself in. At least the good news is it seems that not everyone has boarded the hate train, as some of the more recent reviews of Metal Gear Survive have taken a more objective tact, and while they level criticism, they also credit the game for what it actually does right. The real crime is that not everyone dug deep enough when they reviewed this game, because the hate mobs they've created demonstrate there was a breakdown in process somewhere. It's sad more than anything, and I hate having to be someone who points it out, but I'd be as bad as Angry Joe and company if I did otherwise. So, now that I've made an enemy of everyone who thinks the reviewer's integrity is above reproach and that people they like can never make a mistake, let's get on with talking about some of the game's drawbacks so that no one thinks I'm here to just sing its praises. For starters, the premise of Survive is a bit confusing. The game makes no apology for ripping your character out of the established story in Ground Zeroes, pre-Phantom Pain, and thrusting you into the unknown with a new plot and very unfamiliar gameplay mechanics, along with a pretty steep learning curve to boot. One thing reviewers nailed square on the jaw was the fact that you have to grind for a long time to unlock certain core mechanics that should be available much sooner. A perfect example would be unlocking the hanging pot, which is used to purify water, so that you aren't forced to risk poisoning yourself every time you get thirsty. On top of that, getting food in the beginning is also a real chore, so if you try jumping into this game without experience in the survival gaming genre, you will struggle to scrape by on extremely scarce resources. Even I certainly did, despite all my experience in survival games. It wasn't until I got the hanging pot station unlocked some 12 chapters deep into the story that I began to get momentum. Despite this and a few other issues with the control scheme, Survive otherwise does pretty well for itself, and the way the story unfolds gradually acquaints the player with more and more of its mechanics in a methodical and effective way. It's also encouraging to see the loadout and equipment systems of Metal Gear Online come back with an even more granular customization scheme and the options to unequip slots entirely. I was concerned that Survive might suffer from becoming monotonous fast, but I'm happy to say it doesn't disappoint. Between the new recipes you unlock to upgrade items and the gradually increasing array of stuff to manage for your base, your crew, equipment, and missions, it's rare to have any two play sessions be alike. Every time you leave, there's always a pull to come back and do more. I'd also like to say that I'm thoroughly impressed with the co-op. Even for the most negative reviews I've seen on Survive, none of them have the stones to claim that the co-op mode fails to deliver. Though there wasn't a lot to do at launch, recent updates have added new missions, modes, and difficulties, and the lineup of rewards you get creates a strong draw to buddy up and keep coming back for more. There's also the thrill of going back to back with your friends as you fight against hordes of the zombie-like wanderers to harvest Iris energy and reap rewards of loot and recipes. On the downside, however, there is some glitchy nonsense to be had with some of the Iris collecting objectives, but the good news is that Konami's devs have actually been very proactive thus far about patching bugs and compensating players with unlocks to make up for gameplay issues. Did you hear that, EA Games? Did you hear that, EA Games? To begin winding this down, I think it's best to summarize again the points I've tried to make throughout this review, and offer some perspective on how the lessons we can learn from Metal Gear Survive can teach us about how to review other games. First off, don't judge a book by its cover. Before you listen to what the pundits have to say, take the time to analyze something and decide its quality for yourself. Also, beware of the fanboys on either side of an argument. If you must rely on other voices to influence your opinion, never assume the review is objective until you're able to validate what's being put forth from both sides for yourself. Secondly, if you're going to pass judgment on something, whether it's a game, a developer, or anything else, make sure that judgment is actually deserved first. Doing otherwise is negligent at best and disingenuous at worst. And if you make a mistake, be sure you own up to it. Thirdly, and last, stay connected. As the gaming market continues developing, it's our duty as the community to make sure our voices are heard on the issues that matter to us. At the end of the day, we all expect quality in what we play, and we all want to be treated with respect by developers. As a gamer who's analytically minded and has a voice that's willing to speak, and a community that hopefully is willing to listen, I pledge to offer both my kudos and my criticism only when they are deserved, and to always strive to focus on facts rather than feelings. The fact of the matter for here and today is that Metal Gear Survive is not a bad game, and that a lot of the salty hype trains and criticism being directed at it are undeserved. It's far too soon to draw conclusions about what, if anything, this means for the Metal Gear franchise, and only time will tell if a post-Hideo Konami can survive. Pun intended. As for the track record by Konami itself, if the intention is to bring about change in the company with the things that they do that we don't like, nothing worthwhile is going to be achieved by attacking them for the wrong reasons or undercutting the legitimate strides that they make with their games. But we need to tread carefully, because while Metal Gear Survive walks a fine line for being a decent game, it doesn't pack the same punch as Phantom Pain, and developers should take note of the feedback they get and learn how to refine any and all future projects accordingly. Before I wrap up, let me also settle any question about whether Survive is on par with MGS5. In my opinion, it's not. But at the same time, it's still worth buying and experiencing for its innovations, its focus on base Metal Gear gameplay, and the hours of co-op entertainment it provides. For being only a $40 game on Steam, I can safely say I got my money's worth, even if it's not a game I'd recommend to everyone. So that's my review. I hope it was informative, and I hope it challenged your thinking if you're on the fence about Metal Gear Survive. As always, feel free to respond to anything I've said with comments or questions. If you're here to spew flame comments, then prepare to be ignored. Also, just to let everyone know, I hope to spend more time in the future doing game reviews or just discussing the issues that are lighting up gaming news feeds. Performing this kind of analysis and commentary is something I'm passionate about doing, but I never want to be counted among the critics because, in the end, their opinions don't always matter. In the meantime, expect to see some gameplay for Metal Gear Survive posted to my channel soon, along with some other very belated content for Metal Gear Solid 5 dealing with base security on FOB mode. Thank you all so very much for watching. If you liked what you saw, stand by for more. Falcon out.